address on the slide that is currently up. Our webinar today will be hosted by Monique Guerra, who is our homeless youth coordinator with the Continuum of Care, and she will be presenting our two speakers for today. Monique, please feel free
Hi.
to.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I know it's early. I hope everyone's had coffee and everyone's rested. It's a beautiful day. It's not too hot. Thank you all for joining us on this amazing webinar. I hope everyone leaves with some good info and things that you can take back to your organization. So thank you all again. I appreciate your time, and so does our Continuum of Care. Today we have two amazing speakers. We have Nikki DeLong and her co-presenter from Olive Crest, and their organization is phenomenal. And then we have Christopher Deck and Kimberly, who are also going to present about their programs at their community colleges. So I hope this is really beneficial for everyone. This is our agenda for today. So you all heard beautiful Emma Singh, our Continuum of Care manager, introduce and welcome everyone. And then we're going to have our beautiful presenters, Olive Crest first, and then Christopher Deck with the Foster Youth Support Network. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. So please go ahead and save those questions, put them in the chat, write them down so that you can ask them at the end of the presentation. Also, remember to please sign in with your full name, title, and organization in the webinar chat box. And I think we are good to go. Thank you, everyone. Are you here, Nikki? Nikki or John? Okay. We'll go ahead and start with Christopher. So Chris, if you and Kimberly want to start, we'll just go over to your slides and then we'll do Olive Crest afterward. No worries.
That sounds good. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you, Monique and Emma and everyone for inviting us. And I think what we want to do for our portion is just to kind of describe some of the initiatives that are happening in our community college district. So like Monique mentioned, my name is Chris Deck, and I direct the Foster Youth Support Network for our district. So I'm actually based at our district office, and then we have support for foster youth at all three of our colleges, which are Moreno Valley College, Norco College, and Riverside City College. And to kind of discuss more about that a little bit later about the actual campus support that exists on each of our campuses, where we have Kim Thomas from Norco, who's going to jump in more to kind of all the great things that are happening on campus for students from foster care. So that's enough preamble for me, so we can go to the next slide and kind of dive right in. So just to kind of set the context for, you know, some of the reasons why we really want to try to focus our efforts on supporting foster youth in post-secondary education. Some of this data that, you know, came out from a report that's actually a few years older now and pre-COVID, and so a lot of this data may have changed, maybe some for the better, probably a lot for the worse, unfortunately, but nonetheless, just kind of, you know, what we're kind of up against. But, you know, regarding education data for foster youth, for instance, students from foster care are suspended or excluded from high school at nearly 3 times the rate of non-foster students. Only 54% roughly of foster youth students complete high school in 4 years, compared to 83% of non-foster students. And a really big one for us is this third one. The 85% of foster youth apply to a California community college, but only about 50% ever enroll. And that's really where we've tried to hone in a lot of our efforts with our Foster Youth Support Network program. And lastly, even when students do come to college, unfortunately, the average GPA for foster youth in their first year can be 25% lower, and they earn 1/3 fewer credits than their non-foster peers. So a lot of challenges that we're always up against, and we're doing everything we can to try to better those numbers. And you can move to the next slide, please. So for Foster Youth Support Network, this district-wide initiative, like I mentioned, we have really 2 primary goals. And the first is to really sort of maintain the interagency collaboration in our region that for all the agencies, community-based organizations, all the different, entities out there that are supporting foster youth, we want to engage with them more, work with them. Definitely, we have the education piece in terms of post-secondary, but we want to make sure that foster youth are tapped into all the different resources that are out there to meet their basic needs. The second goal that we had is really direct support for foster youth in our feeder K through 12 districts. And what we're trying to do is reduce that gap of those students that apply to community college and actually enroll, like we mentioned before. So I'll kind of explain, how we do both of those things. Next slide, please. So in terms of agency collaboration, when we started this program, we received a grant from the California Governor's Office 4 years ago. And at the time, there was already an existing sort of structure that was through the Riverside County Office of Education, their foster youth coordinating program. And I just went to the director of that program and said, we'd love to be a part of this. Can we work together? Can we sort of co-host, the quarterly meetings that you have? And so they were gracious enough to allow us to do that. And so ever since then, we basically partner and we join in their executive advisory council. It brings together just all the different organizations in the county, our COE and our district, the ILP program, Riverside DPSS, a lot of different community organizations, and of course the K through 12 districts, and many more. But just kind of the setting the scene for who's all at the table. And we really try to work together to make sure that our staff and our colleges in general are tapped into these different support services. Next slide, please. And then in terms of our direct support, really where Kim comes in, and we have 2 other folks as well. We have 3, they're called student resource specialists. They are employees of our colleges, and they are based at each of our colleges, but they're actually embedded in those colleges' feeder high schools. And their charge is to work directly with foster youth in grades 9 through 12 on college and career readiness. And like I mentioned, the transition to post-secondary. So you can see here just a little breakdown. We're regionalized. So we have a staff person at Moreno Valley College that supports Moreno Valley USD in Valverde. And from Norco College, Kim supports Corona Norco Unified. And then we have a person at RCC that supports the 3 feeder districts to RCC as well, Alvord, Jurupa, and Riverside. Next slide, please. And so one of the things we do, because we are trying to work with all grades in high school, starting 9th grade all the way up through 12th grade, is we really want, to provide some good information for foster youth that are, not quite ready to graduate. They're still in lower grades. We really just want to start introducing the concept and talking about what it would mean for college for them. I think we all understand, that foster youth, college is not always first on their radar, and that is completely understandable because, they have a lot of other sort of day-to-day things that they have to focus on. But the earlier that we can engage with them, we want to make sure that when they do come to college, they at least hopefully feel a little bit more on track, or maybe thinking about, here's what I want to come to college for. And the hope is that they'll be more successful once they're here. So this right here, this is an initiative. It's part of our, the tools that we use. It's called the California College Guidance Initiative. This is an open source thing. It's not just for foster youth. Anyone can use this, but it's a college and career planning tool. And they have different lessons that are standards based, that are, based on different grade levels. And so what we try to do through this is have our staff, pick out a few of these activities that are, listed here, and kind of walk through it with the students so that they can get a better sense of their future goals. They have, career assessments in here as well, sort of self-reflection activities, just some stuff that we can, like I said, start the conversation with students and get them thinking about college. And in addition to, this curriculum, the college and career curriculum, CCGI also hosts, in partner districts, they actually have the students' high school transcript within the system, and our colleges have signed an agreement with CCGI, so we also can see that. So we have better depth into a student's current grades and, how they're doing in high school. So we can provide just, more efficient advising for them as the staff are meeting with the students. So just kind of wanted to quickly detail that, and we can go to the next slide. Focusing now more on like the seniors, the transition point, right, for students. Our goal is to walk students through the process, because it is a process and there are barriers and there are, unfortunately, a lot of hoops that students have to jump through to actually successfully enroll in college. So we start at the very basic, and the staff are awesome about sitting down and doing the college application with the student, filling out the financial aid applications, following through on the verification that they're going to have to turn in as being a former foster youth, current or former foster youth, with the campuses, assisting throughout the entire matriculation process and helping them register for courses. And the goal at the very end, of course, is just to make sure that we provide that warm handoff, like, they're a 12th grader, school's coming to an end, they're on track for graduation and hopefully coming to college, that we package everything up and give that warm handoff to the campus-based support program that exists in all 3 of our colleges as well. Next slide, please. We also host, pre-pandemic, we hosted Foster Youth College Welcome Days, so specific welcome days at each of our colleges for foster youth from high school. We bus them into the campus, provided a program orientation, usually a keynote speaker, did a cool campus tour with them. If they needed help with college apps or FAFSA, we're available at that point, and also just an opportunity for them to network with current college foster youth for, kind of just get a chance to hear it straight from their near peers about what college is like. And, obviously we've done this virtually to, some success during COVID, but we hope to, as we're coming out of that, we hope to do this again in person relatively soon. Next slide, please. Quickly, just to highlight, specifically in Riverside City College and the 3 feeder districts that feed into RCC, in case anyone is curious or students in those districts that could take advantage of this, high school students. We also have an additional grant to support students that want to take a dual enrollment course so they can get into a class, earn college credit and high school credit at the same time. And they have support from the student resource specialists at RCC from our foster youth support network. They help them with the college application, once again, the process, the approval forms, how to get into the class. And then, especially after they get into the class, doing weekly check-ins with them. How are you doing in the course? Let's log into your Canvas account. Let's make sure you're doing your assignments. Because we want to get foster youth the ability to earn credits faster while they're still in high school. And we believe that will really benefit them once they do transition fully over to the college. But we also want to make sure that they're successful and they're not falling behind as they do that. So it's basically it started out as a pilot program. We're in our 2nd year of that and chugging right along. So the best part is for every class that a student completes a dual enrollment course, they get $300 just as an incentive to actually take the leap and try to do college a little bit early. Next slide, please. So we have had some success, and we try to gather data all the time. We have a database that we all share on the work that we do. We started this in 2018, and as you can see, like, we can track the number of services we provide to how many students receive those services. So 5,000 services to a little over 1,000 foster youth in grades 9 through 12. In our old system that we're using, we have to change systems, so it's been kind of wonky. But in our old system, we were able to see that, as you can see here from our service area, about 494 foster youth actually registered in our colleges, and then even 400 foster youth from outside our service area registered in our colleges as well. Next, please. Okay, so that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kimberly Thomas from Norco College.
Well, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Yay! Well, first off, I want to acknowledge that May is Foster Care Awareness Month, and we are so excited to be here to share and present to you about our program and about our services. But first off, I just want to acknowledge that we have a rock star in our midst. Chris already talked about how unusual it is for foster care youth to actually enroll in college, then complete college, and receive a 4-year degree. And I had the honor of hearing more about Monique's story a couple of weeks ago. And it is great to have her hosting this meeting and allowing us to be here in Foster Care Awareness Month. So I just wanted to highlight her for a moment. All righty, so let me go ahead and get started here. If you'll go to my next slide. All righty. So Northville College, along with Riverside Community College and Moreno Valley College, provides a very wide depth of services for current and former foster youth. These services include, well, first off, let me just tell you what Norco's philosophy is. We create a welcoming environment that supports current and former foster youth. Our goal is to empower students to reach their full potential to achieve their academic, personal, and career goals. We promote self-advocacy and establish meaningful connections and a support network within the Norco College campus. Now, this isn't just unique to Norco. There are quite a few colleges in Southern California, actually all across the state of California, that receive Next Step funds that are specific to foster care youth. What is so exciting about the funds that we received is that it allows us to really step in and provide some of those gap services that parents would normally provide for students. And what all of our campuses have tried to do is to move outside that funding to give support to students who have at least one day of lived experience with foster care. And so, although we're not able to provide them all of the same services, we create a welcoming environment for anyone that has experienced foster care. Now, to be eligible for our program, we ask that you complete a simple application, that you provide your dependency letter that states that you were awarded a court, or any kind of documentation that you have. Sometimes students are not able to get the official documentation, especially if they were in placement out of California, but we continue to work with them. You have to complete the FAFSA or the DREAM applications, and then our program is a supplemental program to EOPS, Educational Opportunities Programs and Services. EOPS provides a depth of services to first-generation students, low-income students, and we are the add-on to that program. Now, sometimes for whatever reason, every now and again, we come across a student who is unable to qualify for EOPS. We still open up our doors for them. Again, their services are a little bit different. We can move to the next slide. All righty. So our services. First off, one of the key parts of our program, and really the heart of our program, are our peer mentors. And I'm so excited to have two of our mentors from our program on this meeting today. So we have Bianca Roman and we also have Elizabeth Murillo. Both of those are student workers who provide mentoring and support to our students, and they also have that lived experience and can help students get over that hurdle of entering into college. In addition to that, we have a dedicated staff to our foster care students. So we have somebody who works directly with them for their financial aid. They have an assigned counselor. They have a success coach, and they have me, a resource specialist. And so what that is just a real complete network to address their unique needs. We want to make sure that for whatever reason that they don't fall through the gaps, that they don't feel lonely, that they go hungry, if they have car problems, if they have life problems, if they have boyfriend, girlfriend, partner problems. Our job is really to step in and not only provide resources, but to be a resource for them. And we have the list of services on here that we provide. I would say that one of the key things that we do for all of our students is make sure that they have adequate shelter and adequate food. And that's why it's so important that we participate in these types of programs and be part of these collaboratives, because housing is a significant problem for our students. Most of foster care students, about 25% will experience homelessness in their first 3 years of exiting the foster care system. We had an opportunity this week to watch a documentary. It's called Possible Selves. If any of you have an opportunity to watch it, it was so good. And it highlighted two youth from California as they were graduating from high school and exiting the system or staying in an extended foster care. You had one young woman who had experienced group home, then found a foster parent who was a really good mix for her, and they actually drove her up to campus and tucked her in like a parent would do, up to San Francisco. But the other youth who had been with what they call a nurse home, a non-related extended family member, had been in that home for 3 years. He missed coming home after his graduation. He stayed at a friend's house, and the next day, these people kicked him out. And it was painful to watch. They carried his story for an additional 3 years, I believe, and really highlighted his life. And if you have an opportunity to watch it, I really suggest that you check into that documentary, because so many of our students will experience these types of life challenges. And that is why we provide this breadth of services, so that we can stand in the gap and provide them that support that they need to be successful. That we can give them that little push sometimes, a little nudge. Sometimes it's a very hard push, it's a very hard nudge to keep them on the track towards their goals, because we know that their obstacles can be overwhelming. I just want to say that we make sure that they have food on campus. We provide a safe center for them to come. We ensure that they have laptops, Wi-Fi, all the school supplies they need. All of us provide additional educational benefits, gift cards to like gas. Gas is like super popular right now. We're giving out ARCO cards for our students who attend additional learning opportunities, workshops, webinars, whatnot, so they can earn those things, but also get some knowledge. We want to give them something for their time, but we hope that they glean something from these experiences. And our centers serve as just a space for them to come in and relax, to feel comfortable, to feel at home, and to know that someone cares about them. Before I close out, does anyone have a question? I know I talked really quick and long.
I don't think so, but if anyone has a question, we'll go over some of these Q&As at the end of both webinars.
Okay.
Or of both presentations.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to just close out with a video from one of our students who can share her experience in our program. You might have to turn on the sound sharing, because there should be music.
Okay, we're gonna open the link again.
Okay. I know that sometimes with Zoom, you actually have to turn on sound sharing for like videos in your settings.
Wait, do we hear it?
I don't, not yet.
We don't, Mar. Okay.
So if you go into your settings for Zoom, that's where you'll find it.
It's under the share button, I believe, and it should say include computer sound.
Got
There
it.
we go.
Got it.
Yay, thank you.
It was unstable. It was honestly the most unstable times of my life. I was jumping from home to home. There was a lot of emotional abuse. A lot of things that made me believe that I wasn't really going to be going anywhere in life. The next home that I would go to, it wasn't permanent in my head. It was always, I'll be leaving again. Probably with less stuff than I brought. And so, yeah, it was difficult. Something I'd want them to understand is that if you come across a kid who is from the foster system or is in the foster system, the attitudes, the bad attitudes or the negative thoughts or the negative comments or the feeling like they don't care, that's not all true. Like I really wish staff would see that we're caring a lot more, and that the reason why we may react to certain things a certain way is because we're trying really hard to just survive. And we've been taught our whole life, most of us, that school wasn't a priority, and we're making it a priority because we want to be the exception. We want to be the difference, and not every day is going to be easy doing that. So just be patient. Well, first of all, the number one thing that I appreciate about Phoenix Scholars is it provides me with a family. You know, going through this system, your foster family isn't always the people you go to for safety. You kind of have to build your own community, and Phoenix Scholars provides that by bringing everybody who's had the same experiences together and creating an atmosphere where they can talk about anything they need to. And that's not something I've had my whole life. There's just some things I never talked about. And then the benefits, obviously. There's, you know, the book vouchers. I mean, books are expensive. I would not be able to afford those without the book vouchers. The food vouchers, being able to eat when I needed to, you know, that's really important too. Housing benefits at Norco. Yeah, housing benefits. There's not too many of opportunities here for housing, and you know, if you have a stable life at home, then you have time to worry about school and grades and such.
Alrighty, I appreciate you guys allowing us the opportunity to share about our program, highlight one of our students, and hear from them.
Norco College.
Dr. Kevin Fleming, and he's amazing too. We'll save that for another time, though. And if you're looking for support at any of our three colleges, my colleagues are Mashonda Salisbury. She's at Moreno Valley College. I myself again, Kimberly Thomas, and then at Riverside Community College is Jessica Bohannon. And if you go onto any of our websites, you can look up foster care services, guardian scholars, and you should be able to find the support that you need. Again, thank you for allowing us to share, and we'll be sticking around. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, Chris, for that presentation. You guys know that for someone, right, like myself, former foster youth, it's sometimes hard to relive that and see that, but it's the reality, right? And I think this is good information for everyone. So thank you guys so much for sharing. We have another amazing presentation from Nikki and James over at Olive Crest. Very excited. Go ahead, Nikki. Thank you. Thank you, Mar, for your technical assistance.
Yeah, and hi everyone. James and I are kind of winging it this morning. Time management's a struggle today, and CCL decided this was an amazing time to do a surprise pop-in at our office. So I'm Nikki DeLong. I'm the intake specialist for the transitional housing program for non-minor dependency within the Olive Crest program. So we house former foster youth and juvenile probation youth between the ages of 18 until their 21st birthday. And as your young lady just mentioned, sometimes when housing's not stable, you're not able to work on those adulting skills you need to develop and your educational skills and things like that. So we provide that housing and some support and a case manager so that it gives the youth that opportunity to try to catch up on some of those skills that they may not have been able to learn while in the foster care system. And then I asked our director, James, to also be available. Were you with us at the moment, James?
I am actually here. I'm literally walking into the office with the CCL stuff. So I am going to take a moment to just get back into my office and plug my computer up, and I will be jumping on shortly after. But I am here.
Okay, sorry guys.
Forgive us.
Yeah, it's an interesting day. But we were asked to focus in on the trauma that we see and kind of how we deal with it. And I mean, how sometimes the trauma is made these youth so resilient and so independent and such amazing young adults, but also how it can be a barrier to meeting some of their needs and stuff like that. So we kind of put together a presentation on that. So do I, okay. So our youth, so all the youth that we work with have experienced a lot of impacts in their life, as we all have. Some of those are positive, some of them are negative, but they result in this, in how we form and shape our opinion and how we develop and the outcomes. These are normally based on what type of support systems our young adults have or what support systems they do not have in their lives. A lot of that influences how they respond to their everyday life experiences as adult. That's how they develop triggers, how all of us develop our triggers. Again, positive, negative, we all have this. So youth who enter transitional housing programs, they often come with their baggage, literally and figuratively. And then our program is left with trying to explore how best to help them delve and develop through that current phase of life so that they can focus in on being proactive, trying to develop those resources and those skills that they need to be independent. Just that adulting 101 is kind of like what we like to call it. We try to help them assess and work through their traumatic triggers, working on the maturity levels they need. Possible substance use is something that we see a lot. We do see a lot of peer pressure. We struggle with some of the mental health stability with our youth and the lack of familial support that a lot of us take for granted. So, so that all those come together to impact the development of all of our youth. And some of them go through traumas many different times. So their development is stunted many times. So even though we may look at one area of their development and they are a full-on adult, there's other areas of their development that they're stunted in. So just a quick list, because we all know it's an exhaustive list on what contributes to trauma, what gets it started, and what keeps it going. So obviously, all forms of abuse, physical, sexual, mental, they all contribute to the trauma that our youth have. James, do you want to keep going? And you're muted.
All right, scramble brain it is. All right, I feel like one of the youth right now. So
Yeah, yeah.
have my own ongoing trauma. All right, so with what Nikki said, and thank you, Nikki, for really just stepping in and getting a lot of this going and out the way. Appreciate it. A lot of our youth, I mean, of course, from what Nikki said, I mean, for me, I look at grief and loss, just being removed from the home, not just the fact that you're losing a home, but you're also losing those staff or those foster parents that you had been involved with for some time. And even with your biological parents, same ordeal, you're losing them. So for our youth, that in itself is a traumatic experience because they don't know how to deal with that. Biological, or when you are removed from a STRTP or an FFA that you have been in for over a year, and you've really come to have build relationships with people, that's a traumatic experience for them. It's just like as if, I hate to say this, but it's as if somebody passed away because they don't feel that they're going to ever be able to get that connection again. As far as dislocation, failure of those are in charge, and these are in some of these homes and FFAs. Unfortunately, these youth do get abused, and then they have to be removed. And sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes it is on their own behaviors. So we have to be mindful of all these different things that will pretty much result in youth, acting out, displaying risky behaviors, inappropriate peer relations that we see often, Initially, it's with the inappropriate peer bonding. Just basically, they needed somebody that they want to say they love somebody or that somebody cares for them, not really understanding how inappropriate that bonding relationship may be. This is where we see a lot of youth, being involved in being C-sect or trafficked, youth being involved in gangs or getting involved in different elements that may require law enforcement. We see domestic violence for a lot of our youth, and especially even in our program. We've had youth that unfortunately had to be removed just because of complaints of domestic violence. Incarceration, self-sabotage. A lot of our youth do not understand that because you're moving does not necessarily mean, that that's the end, and they treat it as such. So either A, they do like our youth, they have this wild party, which then gets them quickly removed, or they engage in aggressive behaviors, property destruction, AWOL behaviors, or substance use. And so we see a lot of these different behaviors coming out of the fact that I am losing this. I'm not going to be able to have this connection. So forget it. I'm out of here. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that y'all know that I was here. We have acceptance socially, and sometimes it's just acceptance through family. Your family has kind of cast you out for whatever rationale they may have. Peer acceptance, which is super, oh my gosh, with this social media thing, I hate social media. I'm just going to say that right now. But I think it really has rendered a harsh area for a lot of our youth to really be able to feel that they are accepted. You have bullying, you have the perception of self that they have to deal with. So there are a number of things that really get in the way of them feeling as if they can be themselves without the ideal of being judged, being ridiculed, or needing to look like something else because everybody is in the same mode of looking like that. So, and this is not an exhaustive list. There are several items on here, but we only have 25 minutes and I couldn't put everything on this slide. So,
and I wanted
go
to
ahead,
go
Nikki.
back to that video that you guys just showed from the young lady from Norco College that was so
Yes.
touching. That was amazing how she would talk about even when she'd go into a home, she knew she'd be there and leave with less stuff. Even if she wasn't bonded, there's still that grief and loss when she has to move that foster home again, even if she's not bonded, because so many of our youth, they're looking internally that it's all me, it's about me. So they have that grief and loss again, even if the relationship wasn't healthy, they're grieving it.
Yes. And next slide. All right. So for a lot of our youth that basically are placed with us, we see a lot of different diagnoses, some in combination of one another. Sometimes there are diagnoses that when the kid was 12, but it remains a diagnosis for them, and we get that on their health and their health passport. So going from PTSD, bipolar, oppositional defiance, major depressive disorder, we see major depression a lot, but we understand why. There's a lot of things happening in this youth life that honestly, even as an adult, I can understand why you are depressed. There's a lot of moments where you feel hopeless, you feel that there is no support, you feel that there's no one there for you. So definitely, major depressive disorder is one that we see very often with our youth. And then we have conduct disorder, which is another one. I mean, and these are stemming from possible, back in the day, they called them group homes. So behaviors that were displayed in the group homes and now STRTPs, where there's some aggression, verbal, physical altercations, property destruction, youth AWOLing, or just being defiant and non-compliant within the home, or FFA. And now the big part of this is they often come with psychotropic medication. So you've taken psychotropic medication has several different impacts. We all know that there's an essential aspect to medication being prescribed to our youth when they're diagnosed with these different when they have these different diagnoses. But for the youth, it's a little different. They see it differently. They see themselves as not being enough or something really being wrong with them that they have to take medication. And it gives them this bitter perception of themselves. So most youth will then refuse these medications because of what it's doing to them, not really understanding or connecting the ideal that the medications are helping to stabilize them. It could be temporary. For some youth, it is long term, but in their eyes, It's only something that is being used because they're not enough, they're dumb, they don't have it all together, they're not intelligent. There are so many different factors that these youth place on the stigma of medication. They just stop doing it on their own and not really understanding that it's also putting them at risk. Therapy, same ordeal. We have so many youth that when we interview, they're in therapy at the time, but when we ask them, are you willing to continue in therapy? Most of the youth respond no. They didn't like therapy. They didn't like how they were treated. They felt as if they had no say in it. So I do try to help them understand what therapy is, why it's essential and important for them to be able to kind of process and progress. But at the same time, I'm understanding that you have had therapy since you were 11 and you're currently 18. And there's been so many different therapists, group therapy, family therapy. You're therapized out. I'm tired of talking to people about the same story over and over and over with pretty much, they don't really see any results in that. So for a lot of our youth, them wanting or desiring mental health services, little to none. So we do have to do quite a bit to really encourage them that, hey, therapy, staying with your medication, or if you really don't want to do medication, let's talk to the psychiatrist and let's make sure we're doing this the correct way, where they may be able to wean you off the medication and get you stabilized that way, connected with, having therapy, which will provide those interventions, those skills that you can utilize to balance yourself out when you're not on a medication or while you're coming or while they're titrating down. So we have a lot of these different, like Nikki said earlier, the baggages that they come with. These are all things that these youth are coming with, and now they're at our porch and we're trying to figure out, okay, so how do we best help this youth understand their situation?
And some of the ways that we've actually had success in this is you guys have been having several comments about actually having somebody who has lived experience. We have a young lady who successfully completed our program, and she had some of her bumps and struggles along the way, but she successfully graduated the program. And we later turned around and hired her as a peer specialist, and she has this uncanny ability to connect with our youth and be able to relate with some of the struggles and the trauma that they are experiencing. And she's does very well at trying to address their stigma against therapy and mental health medications.
Definitely. She has proven to be a benefit for the program and the youth that we have here. Next slide. All right, I hope you all can see this. I was kind of trying to do something different. So this is really looking at the concerns that are impacting the youth in placement in transitional housing programs. And this is basically really speaking on, this is why some youth are either they're terminated early, or they decide to leave on their own, or there's a lot of misconduct within the programs, even when they have been accepted and they were doing well where they were at, but they still have, history thing or historical things that they really haven't dealt with that become surface when they're here, because when they're in our placement, it's not the same as STRTP or an FFA where you have somebody there almost 24/7. Our youth in our programs, we're trying to help them and train them to really be independent. So they don't see us a lot. They see us, at least 1 to 3 times out of a week. But then the rest of the week, they're doing a lot of things on their own. And we're definitely working with them on a consistent basis, or as needed, but they don't really see a lot of us. So if I'm alone, I'm alone in my thoughts. I'm alone to kind of think of where I've come from, what happened to me, the things that were done, and all the different elements from by the time, from 0 to 18. So I'm thinking of all these elements while I'm here by myself alone, and I don't have anybody I can immediately just reach out to. And so, this is a lot of the things that impacted, and once again, not an exhaustive list. Traumatic life experiences. We talked about trauma throughout the program or throughout the presentation. Mental health conditions, their own diagnoses. Why am I bipolar? Why do I have I'm being labeled. Time spent away from the biological family or their familial support. they're dealing with that. And a lot of times they come to us, we're surprised when there's like no family support or just no support at all. Well, I kind of just, I deal with myself. I'm already in my mind thinking like, okay, so we need to immediately find some support for this youth because they need somebody that they can really reach out to, communicate. For us, this is where our peer specialist does come into play as an initial aspect of support. Somebody that's close to their age and can really understand where they're coming from. And then time spent in, the STRTPs or the FFA environment, depending on what that might look like. Some of our STRTPs, and not trying to throw shade at anybody, some of them are not in the best locations for our youth because they are attracted to the things that are in the neighborhood or in the environment. And not all are healthy. Some are, don't get me wrong. And I know a lot of time is spent in both the populations or the environment to really assist the youth on making appropriate decisions, finding some appropriate circles and support. But oftentimes our youth are attracted to the things that are inappropriate. Then we have, the reasons why they were removed. Some successful, most. There are some behavioral things that were happening within the placement that they had to be removed. And a lot of this is due to their own traumatic experiences, some of their behavioral things prior to, and then exposure to other behaviors. And I ran a shelter, which is kind of like a group home. And I saw some youth coming in like, oh, this youth is going to be golden. But then they attach themselves to these other youth that are currently acting out. And now they've learned several different things in order to, be defiant, become aggressive, or literally be, for me, it was manipulative. And they learn all these different behaviors while they're in these placements. And no fault of the placements at all. It's just, this is the way things go. And so then we have, of course, their historical and current supports that they may have. Some, once again, are appropriate, some are inappropriate, and some are just non-existent. And then we have their lack of resilience. Some youth do not understand that they actually have the ability to bounce back. It's just like a little kid who gets hit, they jump right back up. Me right now, if I get hit, I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna be down there for a little minute. So a lot of our youth do not understand that they have the ability within themselves to bounce back and really make some success of themselves. And then their own motivational level and their ability to process and acknowledge the responsibility and accountability that they need to have to actually be successful. And then, of course, we have current law enforcement involvement. Some of our youth do come here. They either have been incarcerated, or they are, and we have a youth that's currently, on probation with an ankle bracelet, and it's a struggle, but she's actually doing really good and understands this is my only chance. This is my way out of not going to jail. So we do have youth that are kind of fighting that. And that's hard to do when you know that, well, I have police looking in on me. I have this, I have these people checking in on me. I have all these different people and everybody's just checking in on me, but they're not checking on me. So it's a difference between that. And we have to help the youth understand that, hey, we're checking on you and we want to walk with you, but you got to let us in the door a little bit, so it's just, these are the different concerns that we've seen and kind of, been challenged to really focus on. And there's several others. And next slide. And if I'm rushing, y'all know why. So, and then we have what we provide as far as our THP placements. We do try to do everything that we can to help them get the support they need. It's primarily through the mental stability, for the simple fact that we know that that's essential. If I feel like I'm well balanced, I'm going to do some things that's going to guide me towards an endpoint that's going to be positive in my life. But I have to be thinking positive about myself. I have to know that I'm positive, and I have to have that understanding that I can overcome all these different obstacles that I've been, kind of been thrown at me growing up. So we do try to provide this opportunity, and we do it slow. You're doing therapy as soon as you get here. This is how this is going to happen, and we're going to move forward, and you're going to make success. We tend to move at a slower pace because we know if we just throw it at them, they're probably going to reject it. For the simple fact they've had all this thrown at them before. So we want to have that. We want to build that relationship, provide them that rapport, help them understand we're on your side. We want you to succeed, and we want you to progress while you're in our program. Let's get together, let's walk together, and let's get you out of survival mode and then help you also prepare for independence as an adult. We normally, if we get them at 18, we have a couple of years to really work with them to get them to that point where when they leave our program, they're actually ready for adulthood. And here's some of, I mean, just below are some of the things that we do provide. We give them weekly support. I mean, our case managers are meeting with them throughout the week. We assist them in focusing on stability, maintaining your placement. And it's not just about rent and utilities. What about a clean apartment? How about keeping your room clean? How about flushing that toilet? How about making sure your dishes are washed? Let's really focus on how you maintain your place, for the simple fact that I know if I'm not maintaining my place, I'm going to have some little rodent friends coming in and they're going to take over, and I'm going to either be evicted or I'm going to have to move out. Um, and then help them learn new ways of managing their own stability. We know youth that are in survival mode, they're doing what they can to make it to the next day. So, and what that may look like comes in different forms. We're trying to help them understand that there's different ways that you can go about this that are appropriate and that will continue to assist you in maintaining your stability. We do work on conflict resolution skills. We're dealing with 18 to 20-year-olds who feel that they know everything. So we really have to help them address the ideal of being able to communicate with others without it becoming an argument or a fight. Because for us, with 2-bedroom apartments, we want you to learn how to get along with your roommate first, because we know you're going to be going out into a workplace, or you're going to be entering school. There's going to be some students you don't get along with. You may not get along with your supervisor or a coworker. You need to learn how to communicate what's going on to minimize conflict. That'll help you maintain your grades, maintain your education, and also not get you fired. So we want to help them learn how to just communicate with each other while they're in the apartment, as well as with us as authority figures, and learning how to, let's take out some of the slang. Let's not cuss me out when I see you. If you got an issue with me, talk to me. Let's work on that portion there. And which goes right along with communication skills. Once again, it's right there. Learning how to communicate appropriately when it's time. When you're with your friends, you can definitely have the conversations that you have. But when you're in a setting where it's professional, you're in a setting where it's educational, let's work on how we communicate ourselves so that we can gain the respect that we're looking for, and we can learn how to be respectful to others. And our mental health service, which is a big push for us, is referring them out when we feel that, hey, you might want to just see if there's somebody that you can talk to. I try not to use the word therapy, like, hey, there might be somebody that you can just sit down, kind of have a conversation with. It's not about looking into your historical life, but it's about what's going on today. What do you feel is stopping you from managing, a job? This is your 4th job and you've been here 3 months. What's stopping you from doing that? What are some of those barriers that we can kind of talk about and maybe even unpack and help you get free from that so that you can have a sustainable job and actually maintain yourself? So when we have youth that are taking medication, we want to make sure your medication is maintained. Let's make sure that we're getting you in there and helping you with that. Then we have independent living skills. That's an everyday thing. Learning how to just be independent, changing a light bulb, washing dishes, getting a job, going to school, all these different things that are happening. And then we help them learn what resiliency is to get them out of survival mode thinking. And that's been described earlier. I see I got 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna take these little few minutes. Next slide. There we go. So, but I did want to say, with the few minutes that I have left, we deal with a very unique population. And with this population, there's a lot of new things that are coming that are kind of moving them in a pathway of inappropriateness. And with that, our goal is to really show them, almost inundate them with new things, new ideas, new positive appropriate groups that they can get involved in, whether that's community support, support through the schools, support through work. We're trying to give them some new things and literally pour that on them so they can start enveloping that and taking that in internally. So when they leave us, they're able to really walk out of our program, know how to get a job, know how to maintain school, know how to deal with the person that they're not getting along with, and not evolve into something tragic or just, law enforcing. We want them to know this stuff. And so, yes, we pour a bunch on them the 2 years, the year or so that we have them, because we want them to leave the program with the ability to make sense of their life and be productive.
And
Thank
as far
you.
as plans to extend our program, our specific umbrella is AB 12. So we are here for the ages of 18 to 21 years of age. However, on their 21st birthday, they graduate, and there's other programs that are willing to pick that up. However, I will admit our program is, we're kind of known as one of the most strict because we roll up our sleeves and we get in there and we push and we push and we push. And most of our kids graduate to independence. Most of our kids do not need another program when they leave us. However, most of our kids, and yes, they can come to us. Honestly, Monique can tell you, if you've got a homeless kid, I don't care what age they are, I'm going to try to dig in, find resources. And we're going to try to help find them housing. That's where our heart is. That's what we want to do. And as far as the trauma stuff goes, that the trauma and the mental health is normally what leads kids to imploding out of ours and any other transitional housing program. It's tough. We all love this population and we want to work with these kids almost to the, to the very extent that we can. However, we're in public apartment complexes. And once the apartment complex comes on the radar and says a kid's got to go, that's normally most of the time is the determining factor when a kid has got to go. It happens a lot. So as much as we love these guys, not all of them are going to be an appropriate fit to put in an apartment complex without having us lose our program leases.
Thank you, Nikki and James. I'm so sorry, everyone. I know we're going to leave time at the end for Q&A. So if anyone does have any questions, we'll take the last few minutes for either of our programs or for our team, our COC team on the call. So if there are any questions at this time, please go ahead and raise your hand. Marielle, myself, and Jonathan from our COC will go ahead and let you ask your question if anyone has any.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't hear any. Are there any questions in the chat that anyone has put that hasn't gotten a response that
I'm sorry, I
would
have a
like
question.
to?
I'm sorry, Monique. I was
Yeah,
trying to look
go
for
for
the
it.
little raise the hand button.
No worries,
Um,
go for it.
so I am the new basic needs coordinator here at Jacinto College over here in like Hemet area. And I'm trying to see if I can, the people from the Norco, with the housing programs, how did you, or what was a successful way for you to build community partnerships so that it could have a real resource for housing for our students experiencing homelessness?
This is Kim from Norco College. I wanted to say that Norco, the city of Norco, actually has no housing in it. The only apartments in our city are actually for senior living. And so we partner with a couple of different programs, always looking to expand and always talking about the high need in our area. Currently, as a resource specialist, my job is to know what's available in our community. And that's what I do. I go out and I find resources. We make connections. Chris at the district level makes sure that we're connected across the areas that we serve. And he does a lot of representing and filling in the gaps where we are unable to participate. I would say that in terms of housing, you really have to get out there and know your people. Know who does the emergency housing and know what's available in your community. And once you start forming those partnerships, it really helps. And before I leave, before I conclude this little comment, though, I wanted to say that what Olive Crest said about mental health services is so important. As kids exit the system, they generally do not ever want to see a therapist again. And when they come into the college system, one of the things that I talk to them about is that nobody's following them. They aren't going to get a report sent to court about what's happening with their counseling. Our counselors aren't in training. No shade on training. All of us have to do it so we can get the licenses that we need. But a lot of times kids feel like they're being practiced on, or those counselors don't get to spend enough time with them. They do their hours or they have to leave, and it's just painful. And so one of the things that we talk about is as you exit the system, if you're in counseling, it's just because you want to build a relationship and move past maybe some of the things you've experienced or find different tools to be successful. Same thing with DRC, our Disability Resource Center. Most kids are like, I was in, I had an IEP all my life. I don't want to deal with them. And again, we tell them about when you get to college, you're your own person. I'm not going to know what they say. I'm not going to know what you needed. So trying to connect them and get them to see the things that will benefit them as adults now is a big part of our transition process. And I've worked with Olive Crest for a long time. Their services are excellent, and they're a great community partner for us, especially my colleagues in Riverside and Moreno Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for your question. Um, I'm sorry, folks, we're out of time. I really do apologize that we didn't have more time for Q&A, but if our presenters would be so kind as to put their info in the chat, if they're comfortable with it, and if anyone wants to reach out to them for any questions, please go ahead and do so. Remember that we will post this webinar as well as the PowerPoints on our website and on YouTube. We will also send out an email with the link to where you can find this information so that you can reference anything that we went over today. I want to thank our speakers so much for speaking to the trauma that foster youth face and being a resource to our community, and for coming to this webinar. And everybody who attended, I hope it was beneficial. Please go ahead and email us at coc@rivco.org if you have any other suggestions or would like to present in the future. Our next webinar will be June 16th, and it will be on fair housing. So please stay tuned. Come to that webinar. We'll see you all there. We're going to stop the recording now, and I hope everyone has an amazing day. Thank you all